Welcome to the studio at That Nerd Show. I'm Marcus Blake, and we are speaking with director Andrew Baird over his new film, Sunrise, starring Guy Pearce and Alex Pettyfer. Andrew, thank you. It's a great pleasure to have you with That Nerd Show. I just want to jump right into this film. It's a very interesting take on vampire stories, a little bit different. So what brought you to this project?
Nice to be on, Marcus, and I'm glad that the originality. People seem to really pick up on the originality of the piece and the interpretation of the vampire myth in this movie, which is good because God forbid you are, you know, if the audience feels that you're copying somebody else or something else, you get slaughtered. So,
well, we're just happy when vampires aren't sparkly. So, I mean, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I just approached this as like a guy with an addiction, a guy who suffered great trauma, fell into a real kind of purgatory and became an addict, and it's only with the love of this family that have moved into his previous home that he's triggered back into some form of humanity, and trying to be of service to them and not be in this kind of eternal purgatory of hatred and venom and trying to avenge the death of his wife, because hatred is corrosive. So, well,
that's also something that we don't often see with vampire stories too, where, there's more of a tale of redemption. I mean, we look at them as villains and, well, we try to understand their reasons why they do what they do. At the end of the day, they're a villain, and, your main character is not really a villain. He's just kind of stuck in the world.
Yeah, I don't think none of the characters are black or white. They all have different shades. Same with Joe Reynolds. There's humanity in Joe Reynolds. There's not a lot evident, but I think at the end, he begins his journey of redemption, and it's like that's what's interesting to me. I always get attracted to the characters. Good characters inspire everything, and none of this cookie cutter stuff. So I mean, like with vampires being considered like bad guys or whatever, evil, but it's just like junkies would be considered like of criminal type, or in certain circles or in general. Maybe it's a little bit more. People are getting a bit more evolved these days, but it's a disease, So he's got a disease. He's got a sickness. He's sick.
Right.
But so's Joe Reynolds. So are the Reynolds family.
Yeah. Well, see, and that was another thing that I find interesting. I mean, first of all, I love Guy Pearce, and he can be a great, protagonist, but also be a great villain at the same time. And you kind of get that feeling, why he does what he does, for his family. And it isn't necessarily right or wrong. It's at the end of the day, he is doing what's right for his family, his people, in his community. So I want to ask this. This is not your first film with Guy Pearce before. Yeah, I know you did a sci-fi movie with him a few years ago. Talk about what it's like to direct Guy Pearce. I mean, is there much direction, or do you just kind of because he's such a great actor?
No, it's not direction. It's more like collaboration. It's like, that's what it is. It's like and it's not just with him, it's with any really good actor, but he's one of the very best. Whatever he is drawn to, he can do. So, but there was, we had a really good experience on Zone, and he was really happy with the movie. We got a lot of flack from a lot of critics about Blade Runner comparisons. So what can you do? I was all the more reason I'm happy about all the people are saying this is so original, and I knew we had something original with this, but I mean, anyway, it is what
Well,
it is. You just got to make the best movie you can that's true to you, and
well,
that's it.
I'll say this as a critic, and yes, I
Yeah.
get where they came off about that film being compared to Blade Runner and everything, but you think sci-fi writers haven't copied the same themes from Philip K. Dick books over the last 60 years? Those
Well,
themes,
yeah. Look, it is
yeah,
what it is. It's another part of the filmmaking process
yeah,
to, or being a creative. You put your work out there, and you got to stand by it. You know, uh, Ridley Scott is a filmmaker that I have tremendous admiration for. And
right.
funnily enough, one of his producers, Mark Huffam, was instrumental in Zone happening. And Mark, Sunrise was going to be produced by Mark back in the day, and he was involved behind the scenes on this. So, but you have to feel, have you made the best movie
Right.
possible? And I was very, everybody that mattered really loved Zone. You know, it worked. The talents, the
Well,
financiers, it did
that's
really
always
well
one
on
of my
Netflix.
arguments
Yeah,
with,
yeah,
critics being too
yeah,
harsh on it. It's like there are common themes in every movie. You think that every
yeah,
80s action
yeah.
movie wasn't kind of the same template,
But
but
it was my first movie as well, so it's like, that was my first
yeah,
lead was with Guy, so it's like that was quite a challenge to begin with. It's here
right,
we well, I mean, from the beginning of our conversations, we had really good chats, and then I think there's a moment in rehearsals where it was a bit prickly, but then we resolved that. And then after a couple of days of shooting on Zone, we were off and running, which is understandable when you haven't made a movie before. So
right,
when Zone came around, I mean, Sunrise, it was like, well, we were shorthand. It was total trust, and,
right.
so it was brilliant. It was great. And then Alex was a terrific collab. It was a real three-way, and then Crystal with Jan, she really delivered.
Yeah,
And she's the unsung hero of this, because Alex and Guy both done considerably higher profile work and lots of
right.
it. Crystal hadn't, and she really brought it, and she delivered. I mean,
There's an intensity in her acting and a warmth that comes with that character that I think is very noticeable when you have these kind of two alphas at opposite ends of the spectrum.
yeah,
And that I very much enjoyed. So one of the recurring themes that we like to talk about with movies is the setting, because settings are their own. They're their own character.
yeah,
This was filmed in Northern Ireland, right?
yes,
Because I was getting a very Gothic and also very Celtic feel at the same time.
yes.
So my question to that is, do you think that this story works out anywhere else? Because I feel like the setting was just as much important as deriving this story.
Yeah, the material originated, obviously, the writer's Northern Irish, and it was originally set there. And then it got moved to the US to make it more universally appealing. But the movie could be set anywhere in the world, in a small town, anywhere. But what I ended up doing, and we were very close, we were nearly going to turn it back to making it provincial, like actually setting it in Northern Ireland. I was like, no, I want to keep this Western Americanized
Right.
community. But I still wanted to imbue it with this tone from Northern Ireland, and the scenery, and we found this incredible forest that was full of these Californian trees, and but the rain and the mist and a lot of the tone that's in the movie is what you experience in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
Not just so it's although it comes across as it's an American, somewhere in the Pacific Northwest.
Right.
It's still the DNA of this movie is very much grounded still in Northern Ireland, and it's been primarily made by people from that region. And so and the environment also, because I got to really, even though I shot Zone in Belfast, I was in and out of there in a couple of months. With this movie, I was there for on and off for like 9 months,
Right.
because I did all the posts or most of the posts there, and so I really got a feel of the region. And being outside the city of Belfast, we shot all the movie in outside of the city, you know. So, and it really affected the movie, like the bar that we
Yeah.
found, and we found this tire factory, which they use as a studio for various productions in Northern Ireland. They use this kind of a de facto backlot or whatever,
Right.
soundstage. And so once I saw that, I was like, okay, I can't remember in the original script, but the Reynolds gang didn't have a factory; they had something else. I was like, no, we're gonna use this and make this is their factory, and we're gonna have a lot of stuff go on here, because it
Nice.
felt very American and industrial.
Right.
A nice contrast to the rural, and I don't know. And that's what we did all the way through this movie, more so than the other movies I've done. Is we've really experimented, and
Right.
I've had, you need to have that freedom, and
Now,
that control to do that.
from a horror movie standpoint,
Yeah.
what filmmakers have influenced you? Because this is, I mean, this is very much a horror film version.
Yeah, I mean, if I was to pull a horror movie reference, be The Shining or something, I mean,
Yeah.
that would be it. And as I said, maybe I said it in a previous interview, but Near Dark was a reference that I was presented with, which I think it went away from that. It was more westerns. It was more Unforgiven. It was more the man with the Leone stuff was more tongue in cheek. So but it's just
Right.
the character. The Crow had a reference point there. But
One of my all-time favorite films.
I think, yeah, oh yeah, me too. I love that. And The Shining, though, in the factory, I could see it there. It's like, oh, I can look. Kubrick is
Right.
the greatest filmmaker in the English language ever, probably. So it's like, and he tackled all these different genres. So if you're doing a horror movie, you reference him. If you're doing a period movie, you're going to reference him. He's the guy. And so that I would say The Shining was definitely had yeah, also in the bar and stuff, there's a lot of Overbrook Hotel, I felt like just was seeping through. I don't know. And then the maniacal Reynolds, and like Jack in Shining, and Shelley Duvall, Jan Loy, although Jan Loy's a much stronger, more stronger character. And then yeah.
Now, again, I want to get back to kind of Guy Pearce a little bit. Besides the films where you've directed him, is there been a particular favorite performance by Guy in previous movies?
I just said this. I haven't seen him in a lot of stuff, and that's the God honest truth.
Oh, okay.
I saw Priscilla way back, and it was amazing, and that's how I knew of him. I'd seen LA Confidential. I'd seen some of Memento. And I've obviously seen him in various things.
We were just talking about Priscilla
this
interview yesterday, and because it's celebrating its 30th anniversary this year, and it's such an iconic movie. And I've always wanted to ask him and Hugo Weaving, is the toughest part of making that movie the outfits? Because it was just so incredible.
Such a great movie. I mean, that movie I thought was amazing, and it just LA Confidential, I just saw it again recently, and but it was, and with Alex, he'd done a movie with a guy called Infernal Machine about 2 years ago. They had a couple of scenes together, and that's the only stuff I'd ever seen Alex do. But all it takes is, you don't even, I could see from who actors have worked with and directors and other actors they've worked with, you can tell right away, and by looking at them, you can get a vibe. So I don't go, oh, I got on really great with, say, Kevin Bacon. I'm now going to go and see a bunch of his work, you know?
Right,
I wouldn't
right.
do that. If I haven't seen the work already, I wouldn't do that. And for example, with Kevin Bacon, I wasn't a fan of all the teeny bopper Footloose. That never, when I was growing up. The thing that got me about Kevin Bacon was when he did JFK.
Yes.
That changed his because that character is like he grabbed me. I was like, oh wow. And that was the thing. That was a very important role for him that he fought for because he wanted to change his.
Yeah, it broke out of that mold of the
He's amazing, by the way.
Yeah.
Amazing guy, amazing actor, total pro. He's amazing. And yeah, so great actor. Well, I've been really fortunate with the level of actors I've worked with, and I got to keep building that repertoire, you know?
Well, anybody who's interviewed you now is now 2 degrees away from Kevin Bacon because you worked with him. So
yeah, sure.
All right, so I'm going to move it to our final nerdy question that we ask all.
Oh yeah, great.
So here we go. And I'm going to pop in one more, just since we mentioned 2 movies from this day. But anyway, the nerdy question: if you could have a superpower to fight the forces of evil, what would be your superpower?
Wow.
I know it's the one you don't think about.
A superpower. Wow. Well, it's almost like if you can stay calm no matter what, that's like a superpower because
As a director, that's an incredible superpower, especially if you're dealing with divas.
even in life, you know, because if you can just stay calm, so much stuff gets sorted out if you just stay calm. The tendency for us all is to freak out to some degree at different levels. So yeah, that's kind of a superpower, right?
Yeah.
Stay chilled.
That's a great answer. We have this reoccurring conversation. We're doing a podcast series this year about the movies from 1994 being one of the greatest years in modern movies, especially with like independent films and stuff. And we mentioned 2 between The Crow and Priscilla. Is there a particular movie from 1994 that would be your all-time favorite?
Were both of those movies 94?
They were both 94.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know so many great movies you don't think about, like that came out in 1994.
So what was your question then?
Yeah, is there a particular movie from 1994 that's like your favorite?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what movies were made in 1994. So, I mean, in the early '90s, I suppose I was like in 94, I was like, what's that? Is that 30 years ago? So I was like 17. So those were formative years in the early 90s into the mid 90s because, yeah.
Now we've already talked about 2. We got The Crow on one end and we got Priscilla on the other.
Yeah. And it was I just started going to film school then. You know, I started art school at 17. I was a designer like Ridley Scott. I was a production designer. And then I did a degree in film directing and so from 17, which was 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, those were very formative years where I was studying film.
Well, we'll leave it at this. That's a great thing for you to go back and research.
I know movies. I know another hugely influential movie on me was In the Name of the Father, the Jim Sheridan movie. It's really
1993.
Yeah, 93.
Yeah,
Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction had that was 95 or something.
That was 94.
Pulp Fiction was huge. Even it's just huge. Yeah.
Well, thank you for answering that question. It's something we're starting to ask filmmakers this year because
I got another one. True Romance was huge. True Romance.
That's always a great one.
I think True Romance. I saw that movie in the theater more times than any movie I've ever seen. I probably went and saw that 6 times or something. Yeah.
Wow.
Tony Scott. Some people compared my last movie to a Tony Scott movie. I was like,
yeah, I take that compliment.
Nice. That compliment. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for interviewing with us. Like I said, Sunrise was a great film and an interesting take on vampire lore. Very much enjoyed it. And we look forward to your next project. and getting a chance to interview you down the road.
Great. My pleasure. Thank you, sir. Great to
Thank
meet you.